Hello guys, in this video we're going to talk about layers. Layers are very important as far as using computer-aided drafting. I don't think I've ever used a CAD program where it did not utilize layers. So let me go ahead and open up my prototype drawing here. So in my drawing, you've probably only got one layer. You've probably got layer 0. I've picked up this extra layer by importing something in, a block or something into this drawing. And so you probably only have layer 0. So let's go ahead and go, this is layer manager here, and this is, or the shortcut is LA. So I'm going to go ahead and create another layer here. And instead of, I'm going to call it, let's call it, well, let's just call it layer 1 for right now. Okay. So now if I come in here, I should have 3 layers to select from. Whatever's displayed in here is going to be the current layer you're on. So everything we've drawn up to this point has been drawn on layer 0. If I wanted to change to say layer 1, then I would just highlight it and left click, and now layer 1 is the current layer. So if we come in here and draw a polyline, let me turn ortho off. If we draw a polyline, if we click on it, you can see over here in the properties window, it's identifying it as being drawn or associated with layer 1. Say if we click on one of these other entities that we drew previously, you know, it's telling us that that was drawn or associated with layer 0. Okay, so notice up here too it changes. Layer 0, layer 1. Okay, so what I want to look at now is, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this or not, drafting and annotations, your layer drop down is going to be right here if you're not using the classic view. I can't remember if I mentioned that or not. So what we want to do now is we want to talk about layer properties. So here we have the name, and here we're going to talk, let's see, I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, about 10 properties. We're only going to look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're only going to look at 6 of the properties. So what does show do? Well, you know, if we were to green means it's going to show up on the screen. If we were to select, you know, click in the show field here, it turns the layer off. As you can see now, you know, it's not green anymore. If I hit OK, you know, everything disappeared from the screen. That doesn't mean that it's been deleted. It just means it's not showing up on your screen. It's kind of like hidden everything that was drawn on layer 0. So we can turn that back on. Show and frozen are, well, for all practical purposes, they're the same. If you had a really complex drawing, the only difference between show and frozen is the way that it's the way the CAD engine tracks the entities that are drawn on each layer. So if you had a really complex drawing and you wanted to turn off, you know, a bunch of entities, then you would probably want to freeze them. And when you freeze the entity, not only does it disappear from the screen, but the CAD engine is no longer tracking it. So it doesn't have to, you know, sort through every one of those entities when you're doing particular commands that require the CAD engine to kind of, you know, go through and pop the stack, if you will, and take a look at all the properties for each entity. So just for all practical purposes, you know, frozen and show, they're one and the same. So if we were to select 0 again, and it looks like those are supposed to be icicles, you know, it turns everything off again. It's still in memory. The CAD engine's not tracking it anymore, but it's still in memory. So come back in here, unthaw it, and there you go. They're all there again. The next property, lock. Okay, what lock does is it locks the layer. So let me leave it unlocked, and if we come in here and we were to go, I'm just going to window in around some of these items and hit E for erase. Okay, you can see it took everything off the screen. You know, I erased it, so it's no longer there. Control Z to bring that back up. Now if we come in here and we lock the layer 0, okay, hit a region here. Ah, pretty interesting. I didn't realize it did this. It turns it gray, so that's how you know it's locked. But if you select them and try to hit E for erase, you're not going to be able to erase them because they're locked. Now this line was drawn on depth points, remember? Or excuse me, layer 1s. It's not locked. We could erase it. We'll Control Z to undo that. So that's what locked does. And again, I mean, if you wanted to lock all your layers, you know, just click in here somewhere and hit Control A to select all the layers, and then just select the lock button on one of the layers and it'll lock them all or unlock them all. Okay, let's see here. There we go. Linestyle. Okay, now this is I am going to create another layer, and this is probably more true to what we're actually going to be using the software for. So I'm going to call it track. Okay, and I'm going to change the I don't feel the need to go over color. I guess I can real quick. You know, layer Z, everything's defaulting to white. If we wanted to change it to say red, you know, then everything on layer red, excuse me, layer 0 is now going to be red. So you can see there, everything's red. Again, this is drawn on layer 1, so it didn't change. Turn that back to white. Or you can change the objects or the entities individually. So if you click on that, say click on that entity, come over here. See, right now it's drawing the colors for layer 0. Everything's drawn by layer, or you know, this entity is colors defined by what was set in the layers manager window, which was white. So you know, we could come in here and change it individually to say green. Hit escape. So now that it's green, but all the other entities that were drawn on layer 0, they're still white. You know, so you can change it that way. If you wanted to default back to the color that was defined by the layer, you can do by layer, which is what the default behavior is. Okay, so so we have this new layer here called track. I want to make that the current layer. Okay, and for the line style, if I click on that, get this little drop down and select other, then I want to I need to load some lines in here, because right now the only one we have is continuous solid. So if I select on load, I have all these different line types I can choose from. Okay, well, what I'm going to do, instead of just selecting one at a time, I'm going to select in here once, and then I'm going to hit Control A to select them all. So we can just go ahead and select them all at once, and I'm going to hit OK, and so there we go. Now all those lines are loaded in this line style dialog box. Okay, so remember, continuous is, you know, continuous was the only one that was there. So when I created this layer here for track, you know, it was defaulted to continuous. I've selected other here, you know, to get to this point here. Let me just cancel out. Let me hit OK here. So when I created track, you know, it's defaulting to continuous solid. Well, now that I've loaded all those other ones, I'm going to change it to track, and that'll give me the railroad track pattern. Okay, so now if I come on here and draw a line, Well, you can see it's a railroad track pattern now. Okay, so let's do the fillet command there, and let's give it a radius of say 10 feet. Okay, nice smooth transition there. Okay, coming back here to track, let's change the color. Instead of white, let's see, I've been using like this kind of this brownish color. That'll work. There we go. So again, I mean, you could change the over here in the properties window, instead of doing the line type by layer, you know, you could change it back to continuous if you wanted to. And as you can see, it's now a solid straight continuous line. If we define the line type by layer, it's going to change back to the line type that was defined over here in the layers manager. Okay, and transparency, we'll look at that one a little bit later on, but for right now, these, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these 5, we're not even worried about line type weight right now. So yeah, so in the next video, what I want to do is I want to start setting up our layers so that we can actually start, you know, designing the railroad. So let me see if there's anything else I feel like I need to explain. I think that's probably pretty much it. I mean, it's like anything else. You start using it repetitively, and it's just gonna, you know, it becomes automatic. You don't even really have to think about it anymore. So guys, we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.